I'm on a J45 today here on the Solent in lovely conditions. JBoats are known for being fast, simple, clean, fun boats to sail with a good reputation on the racecourse. Now the J45 is the first boat they've built in this size range for a long time. It's also aimed squarely at the cruising market, and I'm really keen to see how well the J DNA translates into a cruising boat. Well, we've had a bit of a sail now, and I'm helming us back upwind after we've had the code 0 up. And I'm really enjoying sailing this boat. Now, J's are meant to be easy to sail, certainly to sort of a good degree of performance. Obviously, it takes a bit more effort on the race course to get the top end performance. But the concept is that it's easy to get a really good, enjoyable sail out of these boats without needing to be professional or obsessive about tweaking everything. We've got things more or less set up right, halyard tension, backstay, sheeting angles, and that leaves me free just to sit and enjoy trying to get to grips with this wind, which is shifting all over the place. We've got a northeasterly here, so it's coming straight off the land, and it's gusting anywhere between sort of 9 knots of wind up to 14 knots of wind, and it's shifting through 30 or 40 degrees. So they're not easy conditions today. I'm having to keep a close eye on the telltales. But I am really enjoying myself. The helm is light without being dead, so it gives you enough feedback through the wheel, and if you haven't got the sails quite right, it'll load up a bit, but won't do it in a way that is makes it hard to keep control of the boat. We've got a 2.3 metre draft on this boat, and the rudder is almost 2 metres deep itself, which gives you loads of grip on the water, which means that even if you're overpressed, you can still bear away, whether with the code 0 up or going upwind. If you get things balanced, you can even get the boat to helm itself just about, which is pretty good on a short, deep fin keel boat. So we're sailing at about 26 to 28 degrees to the apparent wind. And that's in 15 knots of apparent wind speed. We're making around about 7 knots upwind, which seems to be pretty consistent. Drops down slightly if the wind eases off, and then we can nudge it over 7 knots as the wind picks back up again. And that's really easy, and it strikes me that helming this boat, it's really not that difficult to keep her up at good, consistent speed. So on a reach, we're getting 8 knots, put the code 0 up, and in these conditions we're pretty easily sitting and trucking along at 9 knots. She won't go much quicker than that because she's heavier than your average racing J boat, because she's definitely set up for cruising. But you will keep a consistently high speed, and I could imagine doing some significant miles helming by hand and only reluctantly handing it over to the autopilot if we were short-handed. Right, while we're sailing upwind, I thought I'd just show you around the helm station. I've come up on the windward side here. I get a really good view forwards. The boat, you'll notice, has got quite a narrow beam aft, and that's one of the things that are distinctive about J boats. They haven't gone for super wide sterns. That means that the wheels are quite nice and close together. I can move across really easily. The boat's also got low freeboard, and they've gone for no more volume than is necessary to make a really good sailing boat with enough accommodation in it, but they haven't gone for massive volume, and that keeps the top sides low, the coach roof is low, and it just makes it a sleek, clean and sensible boat with the minimum of fuss. So I get great views all around. Even if I'm standing down on leeward side, I can see to windward, which I really like. Up on the windward side here, we've got a bit of a gust coming through again, but I've got this raised foot platform with a foot shock, so I'm really secure in here. I've got the main sheet winch here, and I've got the traveller here, so if I need to ease off, I can just spill a bit of wind, spill it down the track a bit. There we go, that eases it a little bit. And we've got, yeah, I mean, we're at 30 degrees heel there, so just ease that a tiny bit. There you go. So if you were sailing solo, that would be really easy to do. You would need to put it on auto to trim the head sail, but for trimming the main sheet, you're absolutely fine. I can also sit forwards here, and that is also a really nice position if you're solo sailing. Similarly, I can wedge myself down on the leeward side. You've got a pedestal here with a handhold here, autopilot, small multifunction chart plotter and a compass on either side, and a little bit of a handle. I'd quite like the handle to go all the way round to give me a little bit more of a grip, but that's a minor detail. Other than that, let's look down onto leeward side. I'll come down this way. And you can see I've got engine controls here, throttle, I've got a bilge pump, and just forwards here I've got the hydraulic system. That's the hydraulic pump, and that controls the hydraulic kicker and the hydraulic backstay. Both of those are really powerful, so you can get the rig tension and leech tension just how you want it. And it's quite a flexible mast. It's a slightly narrower profile mast, so you've got loads of control over mast bend, and that means that you can flatten the mainsail off in windy conditions and gives you a bit more control and ability to change gears before you have to stick a reef in. We've got a full width main sheet traveller here on a German main sheet system. It's not recessed, and that's done deliberately because so often these slack lines can jam either side of the track if you've got a recess. And also grit and dirt and salt get stuck in the bearings and can really add friction into this system. There's quite a few nice touches. So this is a Marischal carbon boom and mast, and you can see here that the German main sheet goes through these rollers and then is taken forward inside the boom, which keeps it really clean. There's no lines hanging down, which is partly a safety thing and partly just aesthetically it looks really nice. So where it counts, they've put in loads of really practical, sensible touches that make this a really good sailing boat. It's simple, but it's by no means minimalist. You've got handholds everywhere you need them. And what we'll do is in a second is we'll put a tack in, and then I'll hand over to Fred, who's here from J Composites yard in France, where they build these boats. And then I'll show you around the forward end of the cockpit. One of the things about JBoats is that they're designed to have really good light airs performance, so that even if the wind drops down to 5 knots, you'll be still having a few knots of boat speed, which means that you don't need to stick the engine on as soon as you go below 12, 10 knots, which quite a lot of cruising boats do. And that's where the sort of the performance aspect of this boat comes in. That's not to say it's not good in stronger winds as well, and actually the J45 as standard comes with a removable inner forestay to set a staysail off. Because we've got really nice one-piece laminate sails on here, you don't really want to be sailing with them furled up. It's going to ruin the shape, it's not good for the sails, and it doesn't help the performance. So you either have the jib basically all the way out, or you furl it away, and then you can put your staysail on with a furling staysail with really good luff tension, and then that'll get you through 30, 35, 40 knot winds, whatever. So it's a proper cruising boat that you can handle in really strong winds, but it's got a big enough rig and sail area that she'll go well in light airs as well. So one of the first things you notice coming on board is you've got really clean, simple lines, which I love. It's relatively low coaming. It's got enough back support, it's not very high, but there's a lip there to keep water out of the cockpit, and it's just really, looks really clean. The boat isn't massively wide, and they haven't carried the beam all the way aft, as is the modern trend, which means this boat goes well to windward. It also means the cockpit is quite a sensible width. You've got this really big solid table here in the middle with a foot shock along the bottom of it, and the stainless grab handle all the way around. Another practical detail that's really nice. That's got stowage in the middle of it. If you're going to be racing, which this boat could do, it's just got 4 screws for each leg, and that comes out, and they're fully encapsulated bolts, so you're not going to get water below through those fittings. We've got good spec deck gear with Harken 50 self-tailing winches, performer winches there, with German main sheet system coming here. So the main sheet comes aft, led under the deck all the way back to here, so the deck's nice and clear. On this boat, that's spec'd as a powered winch. On the coach roof, we've got the same size winches, 50 performer winches, and the port winch for the main halyard is a powered winch as well, and a bank of clutches that bring lines aft under the deck back to here. And then on this boat we've got two B&G Nemesis screens rather than individual instrument repeaters, so you get really good big readouts. If you're sitting at the helm, these winches get in the way a little bit, so if you were sort of a bit more performance minded, you might put some big instrument readouts on the mast. We've got the spray hood up today because this is very much a cruising boat and it's all about comfort and keeping the wind off. But a nice little detail, you can take the sides off here, leaving it a little bit more open, moving around's a bit easier, and it's a really nice compromise to having it down. You can obviously fold this down and that goes flat forward on the deck, or you put the sides on and you've got loads of shelter all the way back here into the cockpit. Let's go up on deck and we'll have a little bit of a look around there. Okay, we're on the side deck, so let's go and have a quick look around. Coming out, it's a good wide side deck. No handholds here, but the stainless steel handrail comes quite a long way aft, and that's really solid, and that takes you all the way up to the shrouds. Up here you've got a really good walk through, and you'll notice this boat's got rod rigging. Now that comes as standard. Most boats that wouldn't be standard, so that's a nice little touch. And then here we've got jib cars. You've got towable jib cars, which have got enough purchase to adjust under load. We've got tweakers, in-haulers, so you can adjust the sheeting angle of the genoa while you're going. There is an option for a self-tacking jib, or you can have a slightly larger genoa. And we've got a German main sheet system that comes through the boom, down here, and then under the side decks and all the way aft to keep the side decks clear. All of the lines at the mast are led aft under these panels, and actually this whole panel here is the removable panel that the lines go under, so it gives you a really clear layout on the deck. The boat's got quite a sort of aggressive little grip. It's not uncomfortable, but it makes you feel really secure, and that's over the whole coach roof and over all of the side decks, so you feel really safe working on deck. You notice we've got a hydraulic kicker that I showed you earlier. That's the ram for it. So you've got loads of power to adjust leech tension, and then you've got a couple of mast steps there for when you're getting the mast down so you can reach the head. And then you'll see here we've got this little nice little clever bit of design. This is a halyard lock for the removable staysail. So you would bring the staysail up on deck, clip it up forwards, and then you would hoist the halyard and lock it off, so the strain isn't taking through the halyard, and it means you don't get any halyard stretch, which means you can get really good luff tension when you're setting a staysail, which is what you're going to need if you're going upwind in a blow. And then forwards on deck down here, you've got a clutch and a couple of lines, so you get a 2-to-1 purchase on a line that's taken aft to a cockpit winch. So once you've put the halyard up for the staysail, you then winch it on really tight with a 2-to-1 purchase, and then you can lock it off on this deck clutch, and then you're done with that line. And that means that you can get proper luff tension. The load of that obviously has to be structural, and that's taken inside here, and we'll have a quick look in here. This is your deck locker for downwind sails, fenders, lines, whatever else you want to put into. And you've got a proper structural bulkhead at the back of that that takes all of the loads down into the hull from your staysail. Forwards then, you've also got an anchor locker. You'll see that we've got a bow sprit with an integral bow roller. The anchor's taken out underneath that. You don't actually get any access to the chain locker from on deck. That's partly to sort of keep water to a minimum. If you want to access the chain, you go in through this locker here, and there's a hatch on the bulkhead at the back. That makes the anchor locker completely watertight and separate. Some nice little touches that show this is a serious sailing boat. You've got little stanchion supports for your pulpit here, so those are really solid and not wobbly. And you've got pop-up deck cleats, so those go down and you don't get any lines caught on them. So it's simple, clean, but a really practical layout. Right, so that's your bow locker. While we're on deck stowage, let me just show you the deck stowage in the cockpit. Right, in the stern we've got a lazarette. which I'll just open. And this is a really good big locker. We'll take the fenders out when we get into harbour and you can have a look. And you've got access to the steering quadrant, autopilot, and loads of stowage in there that you can usefully shove either loads of fenders or your dinghy and that kind of thing, and that's got a good big hatch to open it. On port side, this is a really neat solution. So you've got a cabin below here. So you've got a cockpit sole depth locker, and it's designated for the life raft. So rather than having a lip that comes all the way up to the top, the hatch goes all the way down to the cockpit sole. So when I undo that, you can see that I've got the life raft in a valise case here, and I don't have to lift it up and out. I can just drag it straight to the stern. So that's a really neat little design touch that I like. On starboard side, we've got a cockpit sole depth locker. It's not huge, but you've got space for lines and things, and that actually extends all the way outboard, so you can put some quite big things in, and it extends aft under the cockpit coaming here, just under Fred, so you can put all your boat hooks and oars and longer objects in there without having to take them below. And then the last little bits are in the cockpit table, where you've got a couple of bins, so you can stow all of your cruising clobber. You can also turn it over like that on both sides to keep all your drinks secure. Right, well, we've had a really fun sail on a lovely day. Let's go and have a look around down below. Right, here we are down below, and the impression is very much that this is a J-boat. White galley surfaces, white bulkheads, white hull sides, and then some really nice woodwork. Feels a little bit posher than your average J-boat, a bit more luxury, but still recognisably a J-boat. Just to point out, as we came down, we've got some 4 steps here with loads of grip on them and beveled sides. That feels really secure and seaworthy, and handholds either side of the companionway. And there's also a retractable washboards and a rope bin just below the companionway entrance there. So that keeps all of the ropes clear and out of the way. We'll show you that a little bit. Then you come down into the galley and you've got what is an absolutely massive galley. Now this is a boat that is narrower on the waterline and in its beam than most boats of its size, and the beam isn't taken as far aft, so you might expect it to feel less spacious in here. But they've pushed everything right out to the hull sides, and even the choice of the heating system. So this has got a water central heating system on board rather than air central heating, purely for the reason that the ducts are so much smaller. Like a water pipe's tiny where an air duct's quite big, and all of those little details create savings on space, so they can fit more in and make this boat still feel really spacious. I've got 195, 196 centimetres of headroom, so I've got loads of headroom in here. And then the galley, you've got work surface space here, a really nice little pull out for your bin, so you don't have to open a door. So I think that's a really good touch, and that's becoming a bit of a popular thing that you're seeing on more boats these days. A large sink, I'd be tempted to go for a split sink rather than a single sink, then you've got somewhere to drain things. And this absolutely cavernous chest fridge, I mean, you could fit a lot of stuff in there for your cruising, and that's got a freezer compartment as well. So there's enough in there to keep you cruising for quite a long time with a proper crew on board. You've got stowage underneath, pan stowage, drawers, hatches up here. Annoyingly, these hinges, I get why they do them. It's to line up all the tops, but it does take up a fair bit of locker space, but nothing's going to fall out. It's bottom hinged. You've got a microwave in here. So this is a boat that definitely has cruising comforts, water central heating, microwaves. It's got a 3-burner stove. And you've also got, very importantly, a drawer opening fridge in which you can keep the champagne or the gin and tonic. Right, let's go over this way. We've got this is the 3-cabin layout. There's a 2-cabin option. So we've got a port aft cabin there, we've got a starboard aft cabin here, and then we've got a small heads compartment on the starboard side. In there's a toilet. It's not huge, so the toilet will get wet if you have a shower, but there's an extendable tap that becomes a shower, and you can shower in there with a draining pan. And then you've got your starboard aft cabin in here. That's all full of sailing kit. It's identical to the one on the other side, so we'll have a look at that in a second. But just to say, if you go for the 2 cabin version, this door swivels here, the door will open into the heads, and all of that space becomes a massive heads compartment. And then to starboard, you've got the chart table, and that would move aft 10, 20 centimetres, something like that. Not a huge amount, but what that does is it gives you more space on the starboard settee berth here. This berth, without the cushion at the end, is 180 centimetres long. So it's just a little bit short for using as a sea berth. If you move the chart table aft with the 2 cabin version, that becomes a proper sea berth. While we're at the chart table, let's have a quick look. There's stowage under the seat and in the drawers here. Perfect for winch handles, that kind of stuff. That's a really solid drawer. And nice little details like the shelving under here. And this is a proper chart table facing forwards. It's covered with leather. It's big enough to keep my leisure folios in. Space for all your little bits and bobs. Safety lines in there. And then I've got more locker space up here that I can put books and things in there. Electrical switching here, which is good. Just touch button. There's little star screws for if you want to open it and attach. For doing that, I'd quite like the ones that are the hinge that you can just pop a button and open them, because then if a fuse goes or something, you haven't got to undo 6 separate screws. However, that's neat and it's out of the way, and all of the black boxes live in there. And there's also space to mount a chart plotter if you want to put one there. So it's forward facing, it's really secure. You'd probably put a bum strap in, although heeling over, you would be able to brace against the galley. So that's a really good layout, and I love having a proper chart table on a boat, especially a forward facing one. Even if you're just doing your emails on your laptop, I think they're great. Right, let's have a look at the port aft cabin. We've had a look at the galley. Oh, I didn't mention this. You've got a really big stainless steel grab rail all around the edge. And I think that's a brilliant touch, because I can come from this handle at the bottom of the companionway onto this, and then above on either side, I've got recessed grab handles, which are, I mean, I could properly swing off those. They're really solid. And then I can move all the way forwards with them. So you know that wherever you go in the boat, you can imagine moving around in a seaway, really deep fiddle on the galley. You've got loads to hold on to. Right, let's have a look in the aft cabin. So you've got a double berth in here with hanging locker and shelved stowage and more cupboard space under there. So they've really made use and crammed in loads of stowage space. So even though this is what looks like a low volume cruiser, I don't think you get significantly less space than some much more voluminous, bulky boats, and a boat this boat is sort of designed around sailing. So I think that's a really good use of space that they found within the waterline. Under here, you've got a fuel tank. You've got 200 litres of diesel, which should give you a reasonable range. There are panels to access the engine for maintenance here, but they don't have easy hatches to operate them. You have to open them from the other side, which is a little bit of a shame. And then you have got 2 opening hatches in here as well, so it's well ventilated in the cabin, and loads of decent headspace. Got 196 of headroom in here, so loads of headroom. While we're here, let's have a quick look at the engine, shall we? 2 catches. On gas struts, that comes up. A little bit of a duck under. But there's a light that comes on automatically at the back, which is good. You've got start battery. They're all AGM batteries on this boat. So I've got access to alternator belt, oil, water separator, and I think some of the other systems are going to have to access, so fuel filter is accessed from the side there. So you've got access to most things, but it's, you've got to access from the other sides to get access to everything on that one. Okay, that's the same, more or less, as that cabin. Let's go forward into the saloon. Right, coming into the saloon, we've got a really nice big open space. And for the first time, JBoat have introduced hull windows. Now, you obviously have to put a little bit more reinforcement in to make the hull stiff around those, but that's a really nice touch. When you're sailing along, you can see under the water, which is quite nice. They're a little bit low if you want to sit and look out. So if I wanted to see the horizon, I have to bend down a little bit, which is a slight shame, but it's only a minor detail, and it is lovely to be able to look out and see your surroundings. All the way forwards, you've got stowage lockers up here. So this boat, they've really put in stowage that is going to make cruising more comfortable. And little things like they've actually put a fiddle around this shelf behind the saloon seating, makes that a useful space that you can put things and they're not going to fall off when you heel. So that's a big tick. Access to some systems and a bit more stowage space behind the seats. There's one of your water pumps for the plumbing system. And then underneath me here is all stowage. Unusually for a J-boat and a performance cruiser, they've put the water tank up in the forward cabin. That's deliberate because there's a whole load of clobber and kit that comes with cruising that goes into the lockers aft, and that actually balances out the weight by putting the water up forwards. It's better to have the weight central in a boat, but if you're going to put loads of weight at the back for cruising, then you also want something to keep it trimmed down at the front so you don't end up dragging the transom. But underneath here you've got loads of stowage lockers there, so you can, that's full of life jackets and extra kit in there. Nice touch. Space for your wine bottles. I'd quite like a door on there just so your wine bottles can't fall out. And then this fiddled section folds out. If you're going to want to seat more than sort of 4 or 5 people around this table, you're going to need a couple of extra fold out chairs because clearly that doesn't reach to the other side. So I feel like that's a slight oversight of sort of getting slightly more people around the table, but nothing that a folding chair can't sort. On handholds, you've got this. This is a steel bar with a nice leather cover over it at the aft end of the mast. You can hold onto the mast, but that just makes a more useful handhold. So again, as you're moving around the boat, it really works when you're underway. Let's go into the forward cabin. And here I was really surprised at how big and spacious this feels. It feels like a proper cruising cabin. You've got a over 2 metre long berth, and that's about 145 centimetres wide, so that's quite a nice big space. Underneath here, as I said, you've got 350 litres of water split into 2 stainless steel tanks. And then you've got loads of stowage. We've got the lockers by the door. So you've got shelved space, hanging space. And then again, we've got these top opening high level lockers. And that's just really practical. You can fit absolutely loads of kit, clothes, books, all that stuff. You've got a shelf running the full length. And at the head end, you've got your reading lights. There's more stowage under here. Oh no, sorry, that's access to the water system and stowage. Some shelves there, that's not stowage, but there are lockers under here. In short, this is a proper cruising boat with a proper amount of stowage. Clearly, if you're racing it, and you can do that, you're not going to want to have all the lockers full of stuff. But if you're going off cruising, it's nice to know there's somewhere to put everything. And then this is the owner's heads, and you've got a proper sized heads in there. Let's have a look. Loads of headroom. Here you've got a toilet, and then a separate shower stall with, let's open that up, with a door that comes out so that when you have your shower, the rest of the heads compartment doesn't get wet. I think that's a really nice touch, and that's got an opening hatch up here as well. So there we go, that's a whistle stop tour of down below and a test of the new J45. I hope you've enjoyed coming on board with me. Before we move on, let's just run through some of the numbers. So basically this is a 45-foot boat, obviously 45 foot 6 inches is length overall, including the permanent bowsprit. Beam of 4.25 metres, so it's a relatively narrow beam, and that's not taken all the way aft, critically. It's got a displacement of 10.4 tonnes, which is a lot heavier than a J-boat of this kind of size would normally be, but 4.2 tonnes of that, which is just over 40%, 43% of that is in the ballast in the keel, which makes this a really stiff boat. That's a high number, and that makes it a much better cruising boat. You've got 350 litres of water, 200 litres of fuel, so that gives you good range for going off cruising. Clearly, you're not going to want all that water if you're racing. Sail area of 117, just over 117 square meters. So that's a healthy sail area, a little bit more if you have an overlapping jib. And you've also got a 100 meter plus asymmetric spinnaker and the code 0. Now, for those of you who have been busily saving up your pocket money to see whether you can afford this, the base price excluding VAT here in the UK is £450,000. Now this boat has got a pretty good level of spec. It's got a carbon mast, it's got the Nemesis displays, it's got twin chart plotters, it's got powered winches, it's got the whole works. And this boat, as tested, comes in at £790,000 including VAT. So, do the qualities of being fast and fun to sail translate well into a cruising boat? I think they do. This boat is still a narrow waterline, low volume, low freeboard, and it's really designed around proper sailing. She's stiff, but she's still easily driven. Even though she's got a slightly heavier displacement, she's easily driven and it's easy to get her up to proper sailing speed, and you can put the extra 5% in to get the absolute max out of her if you really want to, but you don't need to. She'll sit at 7 knots upwind, 8 knots off the wind, and 9 knots if you put a downwind sail up without trying hard at all. She's really well suited for proper sailing. She's got handholds everywhere, the deck gear's really well spec'd, all the controls are where you need them. You've even got the stay sail so that you've got gears to shift down in heavy weather. So I think they've got it right as a sailing boat, and that means that she's also a good cruising boat. She doesn't heel too much. She's very comfortable to live on. She's a lovely boat. She's also got decent amounts of water and fuel, so you've got good range, and loads of stowage around the place, which you won't want to fill if you're racing, but if you're cruising, you've got somewhere to put all of your stuff. Bring all of that together, and I think you've got a boat that is going to be comfortable to live on, a boat that's going to give you confidence to sail, and a boat that you could definitely take it off for some serious cruising.